Hi, everybody. Al Bernstein here with another edition of our Big Time Boxing Show. And as you know, on these shows, frequently I like to talk to other people that chronicle the sport of boxing, whether it be on television or as writers, writing either digitally or in print. Uh, and today we have a real treat because I have a gentleman who I have enjoyed reading so much over the years, uh, and not to mention interacting with him on social media, which is always fun, and watching his work. He was the founder and the main writer, or is, for Saturday Night Boxing, a great boxing blog. He also writes for Ring Magazine, among other publications, and so you can see his work there. And on this show, we're gonna talk about one terrific article that he did for the one of the recent Ring magazines. So let me introduce you to Adam Abramowitz. Hi, Adam. How are you?
Good, Al. Thanks for having me on today. Appreciate being here.
Happy that you could join me. I love reading everything that you write, and it is the interesting thing is while you often do opinion pieces, they are opinions that are filled with insights. And in my opinion, though it's different when you just give an opinion or you offer an insight that's backed up by other things. Do you think there's a distinction there?
Well, it's funny when I started writing, my goal was if you follow American football, the NFL, you have some writer that's writing about the game, what exactly happened, what the score was, who
Yeah,
scored, the game story, and then you have usually in a big market another writer or two that's doing an analysis piece of the same game. What was the keys? What happened? What
right.
turned the game? Maybe some insight into a specific sequence of events. And for me, I felt that was very much lacking in boxing. I think there was a lot of writers who could tell you, well, this person went down in the sixth round and he won by
Right.
decision. But I was always fascinated by why and how. How was this person successful? Why was he or she able to win? And that's kind of, for me, always been the driving factor. Other than the events themselves, obviously they're important, but can we dive into that a little bit? Can we learn a little bit about how this person was successful or not successful? And to me, that's been the aspects of boxing that keep me writing and enjoying the sport.
Yeah, very well put. And that is exactly what you do. And it adds another layer to the coverage of it. Um, I mentioned your association with Ring Magazine. I am fortunate enough to write a column for them. And you wrote a piece in the, I guess it was the July or the July issue, I think, or maybe August, um, that was about scoring in boxing, the bane of all our
Right.
existences, right?
Right.
And in it, with the comments that were very excellent by Jack Reiss, who's a referee and official, you were able to very, very well lay out uh, the concepts of scoring, what they are. And I thought in that article, there were some truths that came out that are very seldom discussed by people. And that was the thing that to me that was remarkable. What was the most surprising thing you took away from the way Jack Reiss helped frame it and your own investigation into this?
What's funny is, somebody who's been watching and following boxing since the late 80s and early 90s, you would always see, for instance, on HBO, you would see Harold Letterman with the four scoring criteria, and you would see that ring generalship, as one of the criteria. And that was always kind of a black box of, well, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah.
And so the original task of the piece was kind of get into what that actually means. But in talking with Jack and then also kind of understanding a little more of the nuances, I learned two things that really surprised me. And this is somebody who follows the sport extremely closely. And this is stuff that I was really understanding and hearing for the first time. The first part is the hierarchy of the four scoring criteria, which is clean, effective punching, effective aggression, ring generalship, and defense. And you'd have all these discussions, about close rounds, who wins what, and um, what Jack said, and he teaches, scoring as well. He teaches these concepts, with the WBA or the California State Athletic Commission. He's an instructor. There's a hierarchy, which is if there's a fighter who wins by clean, effective punching, that person wins the round. Disregard the other scoring criteria. That is the name of the game. You only come to 2 and 3, effective aggression and ring generalship, if there is doubt about who wins the round. So I thought that first part was fascinating because, as you said, that's not discussed. We just see the 4 criteria and we don't know, is this worth 20%? Is this worth 40%? So that was very illuminating. And I think you picked up on that as well in our comments previously. The second part is fascinating to me about ring generalship, which is many people, myself included at times, believe if you are doing a Willie Pep and avoiding getting hit all round, that is to be rewarded due to ring generalship. And by definition, in the way that it is taught, that is not the case. Ring generalship is only effective if it leads to offense. So if you have a slick fighter who is avoiding punches and making somebody miss, but there's no making them pay, it has to lead to offense. If there's no offensive result of your actions, then whatever else you're doing is disregarded in terms of ring generalship. And that's another thing that was never discussed. So I found that very interesting.
Yeah, that very well put. And my big takeaway was the first one that you said, that at the end of the day, which I knew from having discussed it with people, but as you say, it's not always explained to boxing fans,
Right.
and it isn't. And I have tried to say it. I've had negative feedback to me for a couple of different ideas I've had about scoring. Like I believe, because I believe 100% that it's all about landing punches and the rest is meaningless to me and meaningless. And even though I get, though that's a good point, that, you can use these other criteria if you can't decide who did more offensively. Yes, okay, I'm on board with that. Again, as you point out, if it led to some kind of offense or nullified somebody's offense or whatever. But I used to say I just wanted to, I wanted the judges to have a big ball in front of them, like the CompuBox people might, except it's hard to count both people, but 2 balls and you just knock it down. It doesn't go directly to a computer or anything, but you print it out at the end of the round to remind you who you thought landed more punches. Just a reminder to you so that you remember who landed more, and then you can decide in your own mind which ones were the most effective. Because at the end of the day, to me, it's all about offense. I mean, nobody, somebody hits a wind-blown home run, it counts the same as a long one.
So I want to throw one corollary there because I had a subsequent discussion after the article with Jack, and he called me after the Katie Taylor Amanda Serrano third fight in the first round where neither landed any punches, pretty much. He said, "How would you score that round?" And we disagreed on how we would score it. And I think the reason you have to go to criteria 2 and 3 at times is because, especially in America, even rounds are frowned upon. So for me, that was a very clear 10-10 round where nobody did a whole lot. But because judges aren't allowed to really give even rounds or it's frowned upon, now you have to start going to, convolutions to try and figure out, well, this person didn't land anything, but they were aggressive. So, there is a reason why American boxing moved away from a lot of even rounds. I get it. But I do think in rare cases, it solves a problem.
Yeah, very good point. Well, I urge people to, it's in the hard copy of Ring Magazine. And also, when you go online in Ring Magazine, if you can sign in, you can see it on the digital version as well. So that it does exist for folks. Even if you didn't get the hard copy of Ring Magazine, it's a fantastic story. And Adam did a great job with the help of Jack Reiss in discussing that issue. Now, I want to mention there's actually, I'm going to kind of alter the question I was going to ask you, but we've had a couple of different 154-pound fights announced, both of which, to some people's minds, leave something to be desired. Uh, Boots Ennis finally landed on an opponent, Yusima Lima, who is a top 10 ranked 154 pounder, 32-year-old who's 14-1, who is a pretty good fighter, but hardly the kind of opponent we were hoping for with Ennis. And at the same time, Keith Thurman was announced as the opponent for Sebastian Fundora for his crown. Both of those, I think, wouldn't sit the best with boxing fans. Let's talk about the Boots Ennis one first. The irony to me is that Lima has one loss against Aaron McKenna, I believe is his name, who's a pretty good fighter, and they didn't go for him. They
Right.
went for Lima, and this leaves out many possible 154 pounders. The question is, I guess, is Boots Ennis avoided, or is he someone that's not always looking for the best opponents?
Well, this is a very complicated question because I have some mixed emotions about it. I live in Philadelphia. I've seen Boots Ennis going all the way back to his club fights. You know, when he
Yeah.
was a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
And he was
He's
one
a
of the
terrific fighter. Make no mistake about that.
he was one of the few, you know, Philadelphia is very territorial. They don't like their own sometimes. And he was one of the very few club fighters who galvanized the whole city. I mean, his
Yeah.
club fights were standing room only. It was a big deal. The issue, I believe, are two things. One is a lot of fighters aren't really in the position to call their own shots.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's a reality. Now, the question can be, yes, you grant somebody the ability, you know, whether it's Eddie Hearn in Matchroom or whomever, to pick the opponents, to pay the opponents, to make the offers.
Right.
So, on one hand, Boots is kind of, I think, in that position where he's at the mercy to a degree of a promoter who has a larger frame of reference. But interestingly, Boots was kind of on his own for many years when he was, you know, by smaller promoters and he couldn't get the big fights. So there have been offers with other notable fighters, the Virgil Ortiz earlier, which was discussed, and other fighters, Terence Crawford in the day, there was an offer out to him from Crawford to Boots many, many years ago. So I think on one, and I think it wouldn't be a problem if there wasn't that talk on the other hand of, well, Boots will fight anybody and he's not afraid of anybody, you know? So the reality of who he's fighting versus the hype of what his team or his fans represent, there is a disconnect. There is a little disconnect. Now, if perhaps they were quieter about, oh, we're going to fight everyone, we're going to run up everything, I think there might be less consternation about it.
Yeah,
But,
that's probably true.
you know, from my perspective, this will be his third fight in the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia. There was with Karen was the first one, Avanesian the second one. So you're trying to build the early. He's drawn well here. There is enthusiasm, but ultimately, I think you lose or you run the risk of dwindling in your home market if you're not giving the fans compelling matchups they want to see and want to pay for. So I think that is an issue.
Yeah, it's interesting too. And they also kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit because they talked about how Ramos wasn't available. Well, it turned out it wasn't Jesus Ramos, the 154-pound contender that they sent the offer to. It was his uncle, Abel Ramos, who happens to be a welterweight. So that kind of hurt them PR-wise.
Yeah.
But your points are well taken. And listen, Jaron Ennis fought a terrific fight his last fight against Minas Stanionis. When he did fight, probably the best opponent of his career. It's just that everybody wants to see him in better. A quick comment on the Thurman Fundora matchup. That one is maybe a little more stark because Thurman's only fought one fight at 154 pounds, and it's he's been very inactive in recent years. And the other thing is, I guess I personally sometimes have issues with fighters that are only in a division for 2 seconds and they bypass a ton of good
Yeah.
fighters that have been laboring in the vineyards.
Yeah. Well, as you know, that's boxing, right?
Yeah, it has been
You
known to
know,
happen, hasn't it?
there are lots of people who will tell you they love boxing because it's a meritocracy.
Yeah.
Perhaps on a global perspective, eventually it is, but on a micro level, fight by fight, it certainly isn't. Um, you know, I can't say I have a huge problem with the matchup. I mean, the fact that it's a pay-per-view, I'll leave it to others to judge whether that is worthy or not. But you have
Hmm.
a guy who was a big name at 147, who's a good talker, who can, draw people. Like in a vacuum, I don't hate the matchup. I don't know how much Thurman has left,
Yeah.
which is a fair but he just made a mandatory defense, Fundora against Sue. So this would be he's been trying to get more active in the ring. As I said, I don't hate the matchup, but your point is taken. Were there other better contenders out there or other champs? Certainly.
That would be the only part of it that, because all the things you said is true. I mean, Thurman is a name. He's, and certainly had been an excellent fighter. And even at 36, he's shown in his last fight that he won in Australia that he still has something. So I guess it's more just the contenders sitting there not getting opportunities. So we may have one of the great boxing weekends potentially in the middle of September, uh, in which Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford will be fighting, and they're going to have a really, really what looks like a very entertaining undercard with Callum Walsh against Fernando Vargas Jr., Christian Mabili, and Martinez, which is a terrific fight.
Yeah.
And then you also have Lewis Crocker and Paddy Donovan that same day over in Europe for terrific fight, rematch. And then on Sunday, Naoya Inoue and Merjadan Akhmadaliev. So it's an interesting weekend crammed
Yeah.
with really good fights. Is that something you think boxing fans can really look forward to? And should it deliver some pretty good goods?
Well, I think when it all works out, it works out, but sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, right.
There was that weekend earlier in the year where you had
Yeah,
the Friday night card in New York, which was kind of a
yeah,
dud. You had another card on Saturday that was a dud, and then the Inoue fight against Cardenas turned out to be a barn burner, and that
right.
was not what anybody expected. So let's go through some of that. Two of those fights I absolutely love. I love the matchup of Canelo and Crawford. There are some people that don't like it. Fine, I understand it. As a boxing fan, I am intrigued by it, and I'm sitting here not knowing exactly what's going to happen in that fight, and I'm not trying to pull punches or. I have an article coming out, on that in the special ring edition, kind of a preview. I love the Lester Martinez fight against Mbili. That is a can't
Yeah,
miss TV matchup between two. You have a classic high volume brawler in Mbili, and then Lester Martinez, who actually is more of a boxer puncher, but he has a big punch. That's a great fight.
yeah,
Um, Akhmadaliev, I've been hot and cold on. It
yeah.
depends. He's had performances where he looks great and others that don't. But you have to countenance that with, in Inoue. He's been down a couple times in recent fights, and as great as he is, let's not give him wins before he's had them. Let's see how that happens. It's a fine matchup. The Donovan Crocker fight, I thought Donovan was on his way to just a clear win. There
Yeah,
was a referee who disqualified him, who I thought
yeah.
had it out for him.
I
I'm not
agree.
sure that I know because the first fight ended controversially. there's a rematch. But if you look at the action in the ring,
Yeah.
it was fairly one-sided. But
He was winning most of it, but I thought there were exciting moments
yeah,
mixed into it. But yeah, you're right. He was controlling that fight for sure.
but yeah, listen, there'll be something for boxing fans everywhere that
Right.
weekend. It's good
Well,
stuff.
as a longtime Chicago Cubs fan, I'll just continue to be optimistic, like I've always been, even though we only had that one little World Series. So
Well, I got to tell you a real quick story then, because I'm a Philly
sure.
person, and they say the difference between Philadelphia and New York with their sports teams is New York will never admit that their teams were bad, and Philadelphia will never admit that their teams were good. So it's just a little something about our frame of reference. So I thought that's always a funny line.
That's
Yeah.
a great line. I have
Yeah.
never heard that. That's
Yeah.
that's a fantastic line. Yeah, the Philadelphia fans are a little harder on their teams than let's say Chicago fans,
Yeah.
who get oftentimes don't have too much to root for, but somehow manage to stick into the fray. Um, Before I let you go, I want to talk with you a little bit about your craft and about the state of boxing coverage. Um, and as far as the sport is not just disseminated to people in terms of the platforming it's on, but more importantly, from this vantage point, the coverage of it. Boxing, doesn't get in America now. This is more an American-centric question in a way, I think, than it is internationally. In America, where the sport has become more of a niche sport, television doesn't really cover it very well. And now that ESPN doesn't have boxing as a franchise, they'll cover it even less. I know how things work at ESPN. I was there for 24 years. And talk radio shows don't really talk about boxing hardly at all. So what has happened is digital platforms, both in print and video, have become vital to the sport, and you've been part of that for a long time. And I always look at people like you and Keith Thurman and others that I talk to who made their bones, even though he was in newspapers earlier, made their bones in this digital world. It's such a central part of boxing now, isn't it?
Yeah, and even that shifted. I think now, and perhaps we should have seen this coming, but it seems to be, it's shorter, it's video.
Yeah.
And as someone who likes writing, on one hand, I'm like, well, if I had done a video blog starting in 2011, I wonder
Yeah.
how life would have changed. But I like writing. That's my background. It's not that I don't like interviewing fighters, and it's not that I wouldn't do other stuff, but so you have a couple of things that are kind of going on at the same time. That traditional media has, as you rightly pointed out, kind of left the fold in many ways. There's been a void. There's also this thing where it's in some ways tougher to get access to fighters through traditional ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of times there's certain mediums that I think can reach people, that I think boxing people in the industry view as fair, or at least giving them a good shot. And those mediums have been able to grow and do very well. And but again, it's an experimental phase right now, and I think there are some people that have really done well and succeeded. But it's I still don't know how it's all going to play out. I mean, I think there are some opportunities that should be exploited for boxing fans that are not. But we're going to see. I mean, there's been some really good advances the last few years of people creating some wonderful stuff with fighters. But I think we're in the middle of it. We still have to figure out how it's going to shake out. But it's been interesting to see that evolution just in the time that I've been working for 14, 15 years in the sport. It's changed tremendously.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And it's kind of operating on two different planes at the same time. There's the coverage, and then there's how boxing itself is even platformed to people,
Right.
which is a whole nother discussion. Although the two kind of go hand in hand, but both of them, as you point out, are fluid. And I think this is very much a time where the sport is, the ground is shifting in many different ways, and we'll have to see where the dust settles. I know one thing, that wherever that dust settles, you'll be writing about it and giving boxing fans a great some great stories and analyzing fights in a way that is very special. I mean, I think you have a way of looking at boxing matches in a way that really makes it fascinating for people. And since that's been my business for 42 years on TV, I appreciate it in print.
You know, the shame of it all is when the sport gets it right, when boxing gets it right, it is a beautiful sport. It is the best sport. It is so exciting. You just wish there were a few more of those moments, and you wish more people could experience it, enjoy it, because it really is a special sport. It really is.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And there's quite a, I've been one of those glass half full people who don't constantly pick at the negatives, though acknowledging them in the process, which we all have to do. But there's been plenty to cheer about. But you're right. You always wish for more, for sure. All right, and you and I, the thing we share in addition, especially on social media, is our love for movies, music, and all things pop culture. And that's one of the things I love about you. You are a Renaissance man when it comes to all of that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's all. I love all the stuff. I always enjoy the back and forth. There's a boxing fan or someone I met through social media who watched 5 Easy Pieces last night for the first time, which is the old Jack Nicholson film from 1970 or 71. It's a great movie. And I was just like, hey, what'd you think about it? Hey, you know what I'm saying? And this is somebody I knew from boxing. But I was because there are these people out there who really, they love boxing, but they love music or they love other things, and you find I've found some great people to interact with over the years on lots of topics. So I enjoy social media a lot when it's not saying I've always batted 1,000, but for the most part, it's been a very positive a thing for me.
It's fun to interact with people, especially about those kind of topics that are a little less combative, although you can have some fun discussions on them for sure. Are you coming in town for the Crawford Alvarez fight?
I don't believe so as of now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I was going to invite you to my music show 2 nights before.
I need to get there one of those.
You got to come out.
Nights.
Yeah. We got to get you out there because in addition to the music, there's boxing trivia. I think you might do well at that. I'm just saying.
Well, thanks. Yeah.
Adam, thank you so much for joining me. Much appreciated.
I really enjoyed it. Thanks, Al. Anytime.
All right. Take care. Adam Abramowitz, who is a fantastic writer. You can see his work in Ring Magazine and on Saturday Night Boxing, his own blog, and those columns are superb. Well, we will see you next time here on Big Time Boxing. Take care, everybody.